my stomach in for the next hour and a half.
I'll just check all the specs on these like normally. Okay, so general MO today. So we've got Titleist TS3. So anything specifically that you're looking at? I think there's a couple of kind of key things you're looking to achieve.
The key things are really is to get a mid-ball flight, something that's low spinning. I'm looking on average of about 160 mile an hour ball speed.
Okay. Yeah. So generally this is, we've got the TS3 and an 8.5, so it's been a little higher launching. Is there anything relative to this? Is it generally spin rate relative to this?
Spin rate on that is quite excessive. We're talking about in the threes.
Yeah. Which is nice for a 3-wood.
Yes. Looking at what, 2.5?
Yeah, I think it's about getting it down without it being ridiculous. Getting it to a point where it's stable. If you go too low, then you start to lose dispersion. So manage that side altogether. But feel free to have some looseness, as many as you need.
Yep.
Without wearing yourself out. But make yourself comfortable. Anything from a swing point of view that you're working on at the moment that you're consciously
to be honest,
doing?
I'm not really working on much. In fact, nothing.
Yeah.
Had a couple of years off.
Yeah.
Try and reset.
Generally going to get, how often do you think you'll be able to get out and play?
At least 2-3 times a week.
Okay. Swing looks good. It's a bit like I often think I should play less often, more often.
Exactly. Someone very close to us told me that once as well. A break is good.
And body-wise, any kind of injuries or anything over the last couple of years?
No injuries,
No.
just stiffness.
Yeah.
The joys of having a sedentary lifestyle. That short around is like cool left slightly, but I think again that's more for face angle than not practicing.
Yeah.
Or the trunk.
Man of many talents. So, and Jimmy, where are you going to be playing most of your? Obviously, you're going to be split abroad and here, working in Dubai. But,
well, it's fairly Lakes, but
yeah.
Membership there's laxed
Yeah.
due to obviously the COVID in my job. So Tilney Hall I sometimes play with a friend.
Okay. Nice one. Tempo's looking nice.
That's one thing that I've always retained. We've got a simulator at work now, so
Yeah. Yes.
people have got me into going out there and giving them a couple of little tips myself, and just trying to get themselves better into the game. And
Yeah.
it's given me something to work on as well,
Yeah.
which is great. So these are
I'll grab these are just warm-up balls, and then I've got the Pro Bs just to one side. If you need the T a little lower, it's a screw in, so clockwise, just screw it a little bit lower. Anti-clockwise for a little higher, but I can come and manage that if need be. I must have played that DI shaft now for a number of years. It's got to be 4 or 5 years now.
Yep. I'm getting this. I got this yesterday when I went down the range as well.
Okay. Are you seeing it? Is it starting straight, drifting off, or more like that one, starting a bit left and cutting back?
Starting slightly left and coming back.
Okay.
Sometimes, I will hit one out the neck now and again.
Yeah. And more that side than toe.
More that side than the toe.
Yeah.
Lack of game time, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, what's nice in terms of looking kind of generally at numbers at lower end, you kind of loosen up stage at the moment, but where, as you say, where spin's always been a bit of an issue,
Yeah.
angle of attack's nice, upward a few degrees. Face to target's pretty neutral, it's more path going, like
Yep.
it's creating a shape rather than anything dramatic there. So, sort of key things of looking at, certainly kind of why you might be getting those sort of 3,000 odd spins on the driver. Obviously, head style is going to have an effect on that. The TS series, whenever the lowest spin heads in the world, and if the contact's a little on the inside, certainly some of the heads now, the structure's better for that kind of contact. Manage centre of mass a little bit more with heel toe weighting. Square that more. Okay. So what you're seeing is you're getting, I'll pop the Pro V's down. Let's get out and loosen up stage.
But extra 7 mile an hour, we need.
Yeah, it's something for every couple of miles an hour. It's with driver wise, it's not quite 2 yards for every mile an hour, but it's not a million miles off. So if we can get kind of 5 or 6 miles an hour there, you're good club close to the green. I mean that one, for a face to path half a degree, which is actually very very neutral in terms of face delivery. 2.6, 2.7. It's generally just that little bit high. But the problem then comes as a head when you miss it. Those heads are more at the middle's fine, but slightly off, and you get punished pretty heavily for it. So we'll get kind of 3 or 4 more, just get a good general average with it, assuming you feel.
Yeah, I don't mind the shape.
Yeah.
I can play that slight fade. Definitely don't want the hook.
Yeah.
5 to 10 yards, I can accept.
Yeah. One in terms of actually nice swing, nice delivery, good shot pattern, but a 3-3 spin. So looking at
The shape, I like the shape.
I mean, strike point's barely inside, barely. I mean, fractionally inside, but not enough to warrant that sort of spin rate. So, and that's one of the things. You put the optimizer on, and you can see there's just the 20 yards extra doable.
Yeah.
You put it on carry and total, and carry wise another 10, 12 yards. But it's purely, ball speed's down a bit. It's purely that spin rate. So, couple, but that's. Certainly, there's a good percent. There's a good amount to get out of it as well. So,
The shape's looking good.
yeah, face the path under control. It's certainly general set of it's not wild changes required.
That's a heel strike.
Yeah, so little closed face. Heel strike just gears against it. Just get one more because that's a good face. Heel strike gears against it a bit. So ball speed down, spin up a little bit. Kind of protected you a bit out the heel of gearing, but. Okay. Yeah, that's a bit. So that's one where it's in play. It's very safe, but that one has brutalised you from a distance point of view.
Yeah, of
So
course.
we've got again strike was little low, little on the inside, but you can see here, that's a 5-foot spin. So just crucifies distance. Ball speed's down, 143 efficiency, so we're driving for 150. But delivery pattern's good. I think if anything, it's looking from a timing point of view, sequencing point of view. We're not going to go a million miles off that. I don't want to go heavier because that will create behind and then a flip, and that brings the pull into it. I want to let you rotate through and clear through and keep the handle even the club face, because that's the bit that makes the slide fade manageable. But that spins really really harsh. So 3 in particular, you can see. And that one, I'll add that into the driver data, just because shot before hit very square. That if that's as good as it gets, your delivery actually really suits driver. It's going to be getting, because you hit up on it 4.5 on average, you're adding 4.5 degrees of dynamic lofted impact, so you're going to create launch. So we don't need a head that hits it up even more. Equally speaking, we don't want to just get it down there with spin rate, because then you create a kind of dipping ball where you don't quite catch it. But getting the absolute lockdown is going to be a key thing for sure. But plenty to get out of there. I mean, that spin rate alone, if we could get, I mean, that one says it all. I mean, yes, good contact, so you've got a couple of extra miles an hour, 153 versus around 150 for the others. But the spin being 650 odd versus 3 and a bit, you've got 15 yards straight away there, and that's not quite as low as we'd want to get it as well.
Exactly.
So make that the average rather than the exception. So, and I think a lot of that's the head tech now. The TS3 going back a couple of models, they were great out the middle and for mid spin. Hence now the centre of gravity's moved a lot off away from the face, thinner faces. Should be able to get a lot more ball speed retention off centre. So what I'm going to do first up is I'll get a head we know to be a fairly low spinner. We'll start with Stealth Plus because it's not a high launching, high spinning head. That's a good kind of benchmark. And then we'll look at the shaft side of things for timing first. See where we can get to with a head we know to be a fairly low spinning head. And once we get the shaft right, then we'll look into the other heads and see how we can manipulate those. But yeah, good. Considering the lack of golf, pretty good.
Yes.
Which is always a nice start. I'll just fetch those down. Beautiful. Time out. Just getting a variety of. Let me know we're going to need. On shaft weight, because whilst in principle lighter, more speed, you don't want to start to lose the timing, overpower it and flip it. And when it's overpower, that's more the weight rather than the shaft itself isn't going to flip the toe over. It's more you need a certain amount of weight to pull against and time with, so you can keep driving against the weight. So I'm going to go a little bit lighter to start with. It's really excuse the pun, a bit of a balance of you need a certain amount of weight to be able to feel in the swing, to feel it, and to the stronger your moves. And if you're going to be starting to play a little bit more as well, what I don't want to do is give you something that's almost too protective, that's too easy, because otherwise you start to get confident with it. You're going to overpower it. You're going to lose the club. So it's for taking a little bit of a margin off that little edge. And this is just to get the balance in line with what you've been playing with. So a little bit of weighting just to keep it a familiar feel, and we can fine tune that as we go. So starting with
it's been a reliable shaft,
Yeah,
especially in the 3-wood and the hybrid, we've got it.
Yeah, it's something that's stuck. And you can see it still works well. Dispersion-wise, swing lines. If we go back into the data quickly, the actual your dispersion on the tolerance on swing path. Angle of attack is 1 degree and it's less than a degree on path. So the delivery pattern is very, very repeating. Whether we can just fine tune, strike a little bit more with a slightly different option, or whether actually go, if the delivery is that good and the head can do the spin side of it, then great. So let's log these in. So it's still about 6 or 7 grams lighter. Still keeping a bit of feel. Still giving a little bit of feel for the tip end. It's still a low spin shaft, in theory. I'll do one more of that. So we're going to certainly a couple with each one, but it's the first one's always a bit of a sighter, and then as you get accustomed to the feel of it, then you start to see kind of a truer swing come through. So.
Good memory. I guess so. Brilliant. I'll let you grab some and pick you off on that.
Okay. Just the one more.
Everything you said there makes complete sense.
So it's definitely letting you get the club back out in front of you a little bit more easily.
Get it back out.
But the danger of that is the stronger you swing it, is that going to facilitate the pull a little bit. So yeah, it's a little bit, it's not quite with you. So what's happening through the board is a little bit of a flip going on. So starting to see the launch angle kicking up. So let's put a bit more weight back into that. So if you go too light, as you swing through, you're getting a little bit of a overpower and just a little bit of a flick rather than dropping in and delaying the hit slightly. So, but anyway, they went a reasonable bit lighter. And a good 10% lighter. So
Spin rates come down slightly, but not much.
yeah, I mean that one popped a bit. I mean the other two, it's stable.
Yeah.
It's a little bit low. It's not, we're not nowhere near yet.
Seem to take a bit of the ball speed off as well.
Yeah, it's and that's the thing with the weight. The principle is all lighter, you can swing it quicker. But actually, what we often see, you see here, club speeds drop because there's a bit less to. What will happen is you'll respond to as you transition to what's there. So sometimes heavier can force you to have to work harder. So it doesn't quite, because there's a human involved, it doesn't quite go to lighter equals quicker. We all use the weight of the club differently in the swing from a timing and a levers and a speed development point of view. So for some players it's needing weight in the head, some it's in the shaft. It's just through testing the different options you work out which one's most important.
Yeah, I've been honest with that shaft there, that I couldn't feel the head at all.
Yeah.
Maybe just went too light.
Yeah, it's
one extreme to the other, isn't it?
good to, well, we need to find too light to then find our kind of middle ground. So the good news is we did it at first go. It's less swings you've got to make.
Yeah, exactly.
So going from the first job is the Acra, the 4Z Gen 2 660. So just going up to the Tensei 1K white 60 now.
Yeah.
A little bit. I'll watch one more just to see that.
That may have just been a discount in the first one. Just felt that.
The feel's important because it's got to allow you to feel confident over the club. It's still a little light. Still just a little bit. So we're still kind of from original weight is of 67 grams.
Yeah.
First one we went to is just under 60, 59, 60. That one's 63, 64. So I'm just going to take it just
A little bit.
very, very slightly back up. These are all designed around keeping the launch angle down. Swing path's very, very stable. So the input's very repeating.
Yeah, well, at least we have weld swings in data.
Okay, so same sort of family, same graphite design you've got, but the XC. So the XC's not a harsh feeling shaft, but designed around stable tip, a little lower launching. Should be a bit more feel of the lower half of the club in this.
Still feels extremely light in comparison to the eye.
Little open, it's a little open face, so rotate the ball.
Get up there.
Path the same, they're kind of 3.5, 4 out to in every single time. So that may be, so that was a bit of a, first one had, club speed's up a little bit, face angle's a little open, the first one there's a bit of a toe strike.
Yeah.
That may just be a reaction to that.
So just the
I'll see
lightness.
one other with that. And then I'll get a couple of other shots to compare, give you a couple of minutes just between shots. Nice swing. Okay. So what that swing tells me, I'm going to get a slightly different head because that's still spinning it a little bit. So for a pretty good contact point, central fairly close. So that one very neutral face to path, but the spin's still at 3-1. So just I'm going to get a different head. I'll put a different head on this shaft. That's getting back closer to where we need to be for sure. But still another 2 or 3 miles an hour to come out of that. Yeah, we're starting to see close speed creep up a little bit.
Yeah.
Definitely, as we're taking the weight back up, working the right way. So, but that head's just popping spin. I'm going to go to something which has proven to be pretty low spin. It's now not going to be, because I've just said that. But it's going to grab the Cobra, the LS, because that's been noticeably good for spin. The only thing going to change is just the
Launch angle's been consistent.
that,
14,
and with that shaft came back down. So
Yeah.
where with the others it was letting you flip a little bit. A lot of that's just the weight dynamics. It's not the shaft kicking
Yeah.
and flipping and popping it up. That's just the levers of as you develop the speed. If there's not enough at the bottom end, for you, your hands get a bit active and work underneath. So they were popping 16, 17 degrees at launch. So that's immediately back down. Immediate change with that shaft. Just get the balance in line with where we were. So all the little adjustments to the head I'm making as we change shafts, just keeping the swing weight as constant as we can to start with.
That's the same shaft.
Same shaft. So I just want to see what this head does first. So it's kind of taking one bit at a time and say, right, which bit's having the desired effect.
Different look.
Mm.
Very long.
Yeah, it's fascinating, the different visuals and just the lines on the back, how they affect what we see. Okay. Launch a little higher, but spin less. Proportionally better spin. So where the previous ones were 14, a bit just under 15 launch and 3,000 spin. That was a bit higher at 16.9, but 2.7 on spin. So the spin relative to launch angle, proportion spins a lot better. Pretty good efficiency as well, 148.
Take that shape.
Yeah, you should find that one, yeah. Okay. Same ball speed. Again, spin proportion's great. So head-wise, that's immediately transformed the spin. So and it's a couple, but we're just
2.5
take
is
a
all right.
snapshot on the averages here, where 2.6 on spin plays, and I'll click on each one so you can see it on the board. 2.6 on spin at 16.7. So if you're taking spin relative to launch angle versus with the TaylorMade there, the proportion spin's a lot better.
Yeah.
So the higher someone's ball speed gets, the more important that spin rate becomes. The more speed there is, the more drag on the ball. If you've got high spin, it just stalls it a lot more. Versus the original shaft as well. I mean, the first shaft wasn't too bad, but you couldn't. Club speed at 101 went out at 104, and then with your current one there, 13 will launch 3.2. So your spin's gone 3.2 to 2.6 with a higher launch. So proportionally, it's a good 20% lower. If we get the launch angle down a bit more, then we're really flying. But that's a really good change.
I can see a lot of the face at the rest.
Yeah, and that's reflected in the launch angle. So I like where the spin rate of the head is. That's a pretty solid. I've turned it down a certain amount. That's a pretty solid base bar. I think we'll get I want to look at now. We've got a head that's performing off a spin. I want to just do a few more sharp hits on it, and then see if we can use another head to, because ultimately, it's interesting. If this outperforms everything else for spin noticeably, then you're going to get a better distance than everything else. But it's whether you're happy to see that higher flight or not. I mean, I've always preferred the lower flight. The problem now with someone who, like you, hit up on it quite a bit. So some of that launch angle's technique.
Yeah.
But it's better to be up on it with the driver than too down. Where the lighter crowns, lighter faces, more weight in the sole, that higher launch is becoming, for someone who delivers a decent bit of loft, is becoming something sort of interesting. So I still an M4 for that reason.
Yeah. I've
so-
never been keen, particularly playing over here.
Yeah.
You know, you get a windy day and that's just knocked down straight away.
Well, I guess now with the spin that low, you'd get away.
Find out with the Titleist, obviously.
Yeah.
The high spin.
Yeah, and the spin's going to kill you. Yeah. And that, it'll still be flat at the top of the flight, so you're still going to have a forward momentum.
Yeah.
But there is that side of visually you might not feel comfortable when you get the wind. If you're out in Arizona with no wind and it's all carry, that's an amazing ball flight.
Yeah.
I'll get a few more options on the shaft, and then we can always see where that takes us and whether a different
Yeah.
head comes in.
If I'm just trying to more strength, which I prefer to do, we'd like to do slow it down. When I say slow it down, has to be controlled, and sometimes get over control.
Get that spin rate to 2.5 and the launch angle down to 14.
Yeah, if we can
Yeah,
get that
nice.
launch, if we can even maintain the spin there, because that's also got a bit of a fade on it. So, if we can get it, keep it around the 2.5 mark and get that, essentially the lower we can get that launch angle. And as someone say, some of it's angle attack based, but it's the good side is the spin's a marked improvement straight away. So that's a definite gain. You're a solid swing. Those are pitching 263, 265. You're going 284 and 279.5. So just much more efficiency straight away.
That carries up 25 yards right when you're
You see, just brought some more bunkers into play, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's whether, I guess the other element of it is whether with angle attack where it is that something where, okay, at 6 and 6.5, actually if we soften that a bit, that'll bring launch angle down a little bit as well. So, so you're trying to stay in that mid 60s, 65, 66 gram
And
area.
these are all neutral face, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean that one. Now when we're turning loft down, that very slightly opens the face as well. So there's no left in them. So going for the Ventus, the TR, which is a little bit more stout in the tip than the blue. The black could be a little harsh.
I can feel that head is struggling to keep up.
Okay. In terms of
It's
felt like you
weight.
could just whip that over.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got to really hold on to that without the hands coming. Probably the spin rate will be up. No?
No, I'm partly close face, so that counts as a bit. But what's good is that for a heel strike, that's still 2.6 on the spin. Now, if you square a face, you're going to be around the 3,000 mark. But I think what we're seeing from a spin point of view is that on the off-centre hits, the spin's going to be where the good ones are with your Titleist, rather than flaring up. Okay, so that shaft's not timing as well. That's just flared. No, definitely not the same kind of contact and spin. Actually, looks a little bit less gutsy. It looks like you're just losing the club a little bit again. A little bit flicky through the ball with your hands.
I don't feel as much feedback from the club mid-swing.
Yeah.
Can't feel the head.
I think that's the thing. If you just dip fractionally too light, or even balance point too light in the lower half, as you transition, the club's not dropping down and doesn't give you that feedback. There's nothing to sense. You're so used to having that little bit more weight. And it's not like that stuck and hard work, and it's not you're struggling to get it through the ball.
It's just the head's not working.
The head's the main issue. Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
What about considering putting the head on that shaft?
What I'll do, we'll see what this one does, and then I'll get the DI to put into it. You can see it's still a great quality shaft.
Talk to him through what
That's rotating my hand.
I'm gonna give, I just want to give you a little bit more head weight on that, just a little bit. So Gordon, the Motori F1 series, which is that little bit more tip stable, a little more tip balance, but
feel-
see just a little flip.
Feel like I could feel the flip. It's very pronounced. And
Yeah,
from
you
the
see
heel.
that, you know, face face closed 4 or 5 degrees. So that was what's interesting with the XC, was there wasn't any left.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I mean, this is heavier than the XC, so that shows just where the total weight and where the weight is from being able to just deliver and stabilise and control the club face. It's a real fine balance.
Well, so first swing, for example, we moved it ever so slightly left and we face was
Yeah, again, just a little, spins, pops. So that's
See, I'm struggling on that.
yeah. You can't salvage
No.
a wrong shaft with a bit of head weight.
No.
So
The spin rate's way up.
maybe see those last couple. Again, you're going from that one that was our kind of marker, 154 ball speed, 2.6 on spin. We've got a variable of 2 yards total. Venture PR, consistent but spin.
Yeah.
Oh, Venture ball speed down 4 miles an hour, which is quite a bit. 12 yards, 13 yards in total. And that one spin up and ball speed lower. So I'll get that DI to compare with. See how that, with that head, the equivalent of changing head on that shaft.
Yeah.
positive, but face a little bit closed there.
This is one we know to be a consistent setup for you, so it'll be interesting to see putting this combo together.
Yeah.
Because even though it's coming out, would you like tea, coffee, water? Generally, it's probably not what's been on it.
Yeah.
And you let that
Yeah.
secure.
Yeah, give me a couple more of those.
Generally, conditions out in Dubai you're playing in?
No. Never stopped in Dubai. It's in
Oh,
Iraq.
so of course, Iraq, yeah.
Definitely-
Windy?
Definitely no conditions.
No. Yeah. Is it quite a sort of actual kind of ground conditions, air conditions? Does it get pretty windy out there?
It gets extremely windy, but there's no golf.
Yeah, 183 total. So it wasn't quite as well shot as the first one.
Simulated golf.
Mm.
It's taken time.
Temperature just now is more. It feels like more Middle Eastern. Southeast Asian than now. It's very humid.
Okay.
High, low to mid 50s now.
Just the 50s.
Just the 50s. Everyone's complaining about 40 back here. But again, you have the delights of air conditioning.
Yeah. Rather than a fan blowing more than body temperature air around. Just do that, just a little bit of a funky move. Actually, path line very square.
So they want this one off the speed break, yeah?
Yes, please. Let me know what the tea height is like next week.
I can feel that here all the time.
What's interesting, let me just put that XC back in, because that looks like it's letting you just whip the club head around again. So I'm just going to get a swing weight's one thing, but with the different head constructions now, we have noticed we're having to put different side of specs together to get them to feel the same. So it's the feeling where the weight is. It's definitely not light. Okay. Just want to make sure it didn't swing lighter.
Feels as though there's more movement in the tip on that as well. Though.
I think possibly relative to your current one, where the centre of gravity is now, and they've made so much lighter here and here, they're moving it back. It's going to gear it a little bit more. So maybe where something with, so technically the XC is a little bit of a firmer tip section to it. Might just need that just to reduce that down and tighten up the feel through the shock, just stabilise the head a little bit more.
Yeah, and I feel as though my arms close.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if I can get the arms much closer, it's a lot more.
Certainly something the last couple of years in particular, we've really seen more and more of a difference in as they're able to get lighter and lighter crowns, bases and sole plates. A little left but more solid hit.
This is not the bad shape coming in now.
Nuno says it should be possible.
Just see where it's
The other thing is it will come out.
low. Let's just see one other with that.
Climb it up a little bit.
Just a fraction, yeah. It's interesting, you hit more and more, the angle of attack's just creeping up a little bit. So where you started, I mean these ones have all been the same, but in terms of where we started, you're kind of 4.5, 5, and now we're up at about 6.5. So that could be where it's just that little bit of a whip round.
Trying to get a bit more out of it.
Club speed's good. Yeah, 105, 106.
That was better because of the contact on the face there, so I want to spin. Yeah, so. And, you know, again, it's high rate maximizer.
Yeah, that was definitely not going left.
Yeah. 195.
I think I was going into that one.
Yeah. But it's
Some spin rate in it.
Well, let's take a couple of minutes just so it's not just in one go. I'll just watch one more swing of that. I'll get a few other heads.
I did open the face grab, I did, I think
Yeah.
actually.
The path, angle of attack was a degree shallower, path still similar, 4 out to him, but then just held the face off.
No, that's up to you.
Okay. So take 2 3 minutes. I'll get a few heads and things. We're going to one other shaft. Just take a couple of minutes just to not, just with driver in particular.
Yeah.
Get a bit of a.
Got to be very precise. One more, and then I'll get you to some free rules. I'll set it up.
So I know there's a general orientation away from a certain brand.
Yes, I know.
But I think that I think it'd be what would be interesting. It's been very good for spin in particular this year. It's been one of, if not the best, the Cobra, and that have been the 2 best for that. It'll be interesting to see whether it can bring that launch angle down a little bit more.
What about the Mizuno?
It'd be an interesting one. And the G in particular is worth. We'll give that one a go as well. I think that's you've got the the PXG the Gen 5. Yeah, the X. That's generally been a good head for low spin. Although they've generally been, when they've been good, they've been excellent. But they're very much kind of hit and miss. Which I think, as the heads have developed, you're seeing certain heads become good for certain things. So, like I said, Cobra this year, like the F9 a few years back, has been very good for. Once you get to the 105 club speeds and things, the spins have generally been very good. It's the Callaway for spin has been exceptionally good. Interestingly enough, not quite as we've seen it slightly more up and down on ball speed. When it's been good, it's been again exceptionally good. You've got Stealth Plus again, similar for the higher launching player. Although, as we've seen for you, it's not as low spin as some of the heads have been in the past across the board. Again, right person, exceptionally good. I think for you, where you get under and add a bit more loft onto it, that's potentially where the Stealth Plus wasn't quite performing. But actually, it is one of those where, with all the heads now, where they're moving the centre of gravity back. If you're someone who adds loft under, then that CG really works under, and that's where that launch angle kicks up a little bit more. However, low CG means you strike it above the centre of gravity, and it gets spin off. So there should be a spin benefit there.
A little bit dead then, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it does.
Not giving you
Just a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely turn turn of the century sort of.
Get that back up around the D4 mark where you've.
Do you see that shot with it?
Visually, it looks better than the Cobra. Doesn't seem as long.
I think with the Cobra where they've got that,
just the
I think it's the kind of the two spines on the top. It kind of elongates visually. Yeah, if this is good launch and spin, then you've got the option potentially of getting the -2 sleep as well if we need to get loft down a touch more. Tee that very slightly lower. It sound a little.
Yeah, because of that, you're feeling you have to
Again, spin.
What I expected.
Face angle went. Face to path went. But again, spin to launch. It's like those early hits with the Cobra. Very good on that spin side of things, which, based on what we've seen this year, not a surprise.
I can feel the toes just coming over. I can deliver it.
I'll just take a bit more.
I just feel that toe's closing in on me.
Just.
Spin rate and launch angle is good.
Yeah.
we did catch that one.
Just the angle of attack just crept up a little bit more again
yes,
as well. I think that'll definitely be part of that left side where the more up, from ball position point of view, effectively the toes closing in a little bit more. But I do it more through. I don't think you need to hold the face off. I think as long as you're rotating, clearing, almost turning in front of it a little bit rather than staying behind, that'll square it off. Just held onto it a little bit, so it caught a bit higher up the face, but a much better face to path stabiliser. I think it's going to be. Yeah, sitting a little higher on the face. Okay. I'll explain the spin there. Let's just see one more of that.
Angle of attack's better, is it?
Yeah, 5.5. That's better. Yeah, 7's getting pretty punchy.
Still high spin rate in comparison to the last one.
That one launch angle's up a little. Yeah, well, yeah. Ball speed's not as. Ball speed's that's really dropped off ball speed.
You can see me,
It's just punished you on ball speed quite a bit though. So.
I just see myself holding back on them as well.
Yeah, you need something that you can trust
I
to
feel
keep
if
going with the swing.
Yeah, if I allow my body to clear, I'm fearful that, that fade goes into that slice, just the high spin.
Okay, I mean, based on where your swing path and the swing's going to, I don't see that being a problem.
Just a confidence issue.
I think so. And that would explain where almost as we hit a few more, it's just almost that little bit of a stall and then the hands are flipping, whereas the earlier ones it was just little baby face.
Yeah.
Probably the brain's clicking a bit.
Overthinking.
And that often creates a bit of tension, lose a bit of fluidity. It's why sometimes the ones where you just stick your shoes on, run to the first tee and take a swipe at it, you've got no expectation, goes well, and then start to try to do things rather than just move. Just getting that bit of freedom back can help. It's a little more relaxation, just clear out the way a little bit better.
Let's have a look. Let's get the hips cleared again and see where it takes us.
Because the delivery line is very stable.
Yeah, and if we can stabilise the head better, but still clearing.
It's going to get very slightly longer screws than that. It's probably. Let's make sure there's enough thread to catch. It's often it's those little differences for good days to bad days that literally most of the time you freed up, confident, relaxed swing versus a slightly steery, slightly tight one, and the relaxed days, you're leaving the face on line. The anxious days, it's
Yeah.
taking the face offline. Just a fraction.
I want to have the same freedom as we've got with the irons that we built. You know, those Mizunos.
Yeah.
Tours. You can shape them anyway. You know, very rarely have a bad day with them.
Yeah, yeah, and the shorter shaft, easy to manage. You know, it's easy to the driver, especially if you've not been playing as often. Then it's the biggest distance, smallest margin of error. So it's easy to start to think something's awry.
Really, there's nothing.
When actually, yeah, it's the same swing path, same swing pattern. The swing pattern's incredibly repeating. Just that little bit of tension works the face a bit more, and because of the lack of loft, side spin, you just see a bit more of a further distance. So the same shot that would hit the edge of the green with the 6 irons in the rough with the driver. It's a better move through. One more, but so that one's more along the lines of those earlier hits with the Cobra head.
Yep.
And that's still got a 3-1 on spin. So
If I would take it easy to start with. Still,
good contact point.
it looks a very similar head to the Titleist.
Mm.
It's maybe that visual.
Just held the face off a little there. Yeah, got a little tight little underneath. Just work the face open. Again, delivery line's exactly the same. See one other with that. Yes, yeah, so it's a case of just freeing it up, freewheeling it a little bit. Path and attack angle are incredibly stable. Like Paul, definitely not as good on spin.
Nice head.
Should feel a little more solid.
Yeah. What's the spin rate?
Well, the one that I want to put that Cobra back on. That's the one that it was
A couple of extra swings with it, maybe.
consistently
feel.
good on spin earlier on. So
And a bit more comfortable with the shaft as well.
yeah, those last couple just look like starting to just turn through it a little bit more. And I think the more trust you get into it, the say all those hands just soften and leave the face on line through impact. You pass very repeatedly 3-4 odd degrees out to in. So it's a nice move that should create quite a stable face. I'm gonna little on the inside of the face there, so a bit less ball speed, a bit more spin. Let's just see one more. Yeah. That would explain why the ball speed was low.
Correct.
No wonder. I thought that looked better than the ball speed reflected there. So. A little low, yeah. 151 ball speed.
It was a bit low.
Let's just pull that tee height up a little bit.
You see what I mean? It's now guaranteeing that bullshit. So now I can just get it to stand there and 4 yards right target and trust it.
It's a good hit. That's back up ball speed wise where that's just yeah, there's the other one just working a little more dynamic loft onto it. It's just popping the spins. That's a better angle of attack. But that one's just spun a little more. Okay.
I felt
Good contact.
from a move perspective, that felt really good.
Strike, yeah, solid strike. Just that little bit more work under versus those ones that were no higher up the face from a strike point of view. But that's just a little more 5.5, 6 up. Yeah, so a little more dynamic loft onto it. It's just where your angle of attack was higher with the earlier ones, but delivered a little bit less loft.
Yeah.
Just as a feel, so I wonder whether some of this is, you think, kind of from a swing path point of view, up but out to in, and that's going to deliver that little bit more loft to it. It's, you know, your movement's consistently very up on it, and yes, in theory, you get an angle of attack down, it's going to bring launch angle down a little bit. But if you were to play just the equivalent of aiming right half and playing for a kind of a slight pull,
Okay.
because that should, rather than having to manage the face that way, it doesn't change. It's not, you're not changing the line of your swing relative to your setup. If the setup's a little more right, the path's online, and then you can let the club go, which will just bring that dynamic loft down a little bit. So not,
So drag the
it's
right
not
foot
a,
back
it's
a
not
little
a draw. It's actually just aiming the equivalent of 5-10 yards right of centre and letting the club head come through on that line. So rather than playing the fade, it's straightening out the ball flight. Yeah, that's their reaction to it. Yeah. And it's one of those things. It depends what's doable from a swing line point of view, because I think part of it is the amount of loft that's being delivered. So there's quite a lot of absolute loft coming through the ball where you're up and working the face open. So we've seen spin where we want to see it. So just seeing whether it may not be doable technique-wise. That'll be an interesting one. Okay, so that or one that's still a little lower on the face. Actually, so you've got face to path 0.8. So it's actually shot shape, very, very little shot shape.
Yeah.
So we haven't had to change angle of attack. Path is neutralised because your setup position is neutralised it. So you're not changing the pattern of movement. What you're doing is just allowing the toe to come through, but launch angles down. It's been a little low on the face, so the spin's
Yeah, it's going
a
to
little
be
bit up.
higher.
But there's an element of that because of where your angle of attack is. Launch angle, I think where a lot of the heads now, the weight's a long way back from the face. All you're doing is you're going to see if you start to hit up on it a lot, then that CG is dropping lower and lower and lower, so it's one to pop it.
Yeah.
So if we can allow that to come through, at least it's starting to take some of it off. So if you're working down almost that way through, there's a lot of that. That's where the flare up comes. I know one thing the title said does it's a low base loft, but then you've got the spin with it that then counters it. And something that I've stuck with an M before is that it's an 8.5 degree and the weight's forward.
Yeah.
So the dynamic flight's a little bit flatter off the face, so it's not popping the flight up. So it's there are where your delivery is, all the heads out here now within reason of trying to get that up and out flight, where when you're lighter face, lighter crown, lower CG, it's designed to create that higher flight. So if, without changing too much from a delivery point of view, if we can allow you to get that toe coming through rather than working across, that will help to facilitate that little bit of a stronger flight. All that you can get, what we saw from earlier on, when you get that squared off contact, or get a fairly neutral contact, then the spin's in a good place. And if through allowing the toe to come through, we can deliver a little bit less dynamic loft. It needs a degree or so to lose 200-300 revs of spin. So it's not playing a draw, though, that's the thing. It's kind of freewheeling and playing a straight pull, essentially. That'd be interesting. 155 ball speed. So that one's just drawn a bit, and I think that's the mental bit of aiming right is you're going to want to rotate the face in. But that's then 14 launch, 2.5 spin. So yes, it's got a bit of draw.
Where we want to be. Yeah.
It's got, it's looking at say that one's got 24 yards of shot on it. So because it's got path still a little out to it, but the face has gone with it. But that's then got that launch angle down. So you still head up on it. You know, there's still plenty of angle of attack there. I think part of it is seeing a consistent spin. I think the problem is if your path's left and you're having to work it back to the fairway with your delivery pattern, it's almost like hitting a kind of a cut lob shot in tennis. Whereas if we can play the equivalent of a flat forehand, but the difference is just it's getting used to straight being body lining up 5-10 yards right, and then playing effectively a line drive down. The initial bit is your hands, your back of your head's going to be saying aiming right, must turn it back in. But if you can get your action used to effectively kind of not working the face, just unload through it, you're squaring the face up, you're then not having to work it back to the fairway.
So looking down the right, looking down the fence line, really.
Yeah. But in terms of setup, your shoulders are dead square. So a little higher at the face there, but then a 2-3 on spin. With the face to path on both of those last two, 2.1 and 2.2 closed. So it's just playing a little bit of essentially it's a pull draw. So you say what Torino used to do, he had a very shallow swing plane, so to get the face square set up square, they've had to rotate heavily and big draw. So he aimed left because that allowed him to leave the face online. This is equivalent of doing the opposite. Your path's naturally allowed to win, but to let you square the face to path and hit the target, you've just got to aim that little bit right. It's 156 ball speed, 2.2 on spin, 294, 270. So where if you can get your brain, essentially your kind of concept of square, used to the idea that square for you is a bit right. All we've done is change that face to path number. So angle of attack's as upward as it's been, but we're now seeing that. So launch angle's where it was earlier on. So if you compare that first couple and that one there, because it's allowing you to unload through, you're getting full coverage. So you're not having to hold the face and lose 1 or 2 miles an hour. But it's allowed us to get the variation, the flare-ups out, because you're not having to deliver different lofts the whole time. So those last few there, you got a little bit overdrawn, 14 and 2.5, 16.5, 2.3, 16.5, 2.2. So as you settle into the concept of the right aim being fine, and if you can just let it go rather than react to aiming right. What we're starting to see is a very direct slide drawing shot. But with your angle of attack, you should really be a drawer. An upward angle attack with the face turning through. You're only not because of your path being a little left creates the pull. So the reaction is to go, don't go left. Whereas actually by offsetting where you're catching it, that's letting everything square through. So you're playing just a little bit of a draw, and that last one's only got, it's under 10 yards of shot shape. 10 yards sounds a lot. It's a third of a fairway, and not a particularly wide one at that. So
just aim down the right edge of the fairway.
and probably not even right edge. I think with the kind of shape you're seeing, it's right centre. If you were to take kind of left edge as a 1 and right edge as 10, about a 6-7. It's only just right of centre. It's a much quieter face through the ball. Now you've effectively accepted that aiming a bit right is square. That one, little bit lower on the face, but 2.7 on spin. So that's then becomes the flatter face above 0.9. So those last few, if we look at that, the shot line, and I'll put in side profile on that as well. It's down the same. That one's a little more because actually it's gone a little bit further. And that's the one you just overdrew. But those last few, you start to see they're starting to narrow up the left to right dispersion around that shot pattern.
273 is,
Yeah, and
and I can accept 16.5 if you're getting that carry in.
Yeah, because it's got with your angle of attack, you're just going to launch it. But if that spin can be down to 2.2, 2.3, and this is really a sticker on the optimizer here. You can see there within the blue. So You know, and that's if this setting, the Unifit system only shifts it a degree or so, we can get a little bit more loft off with the Cobra setting, maybe a good degree and a half.
Yeah.
So if we can shave that down a little bit more, you know, there's a little bit more ball speed to come with a bit less loft, and a little less spin, and all of a sudden you're creeping. So carry, that's optimal, 1 yard
Yes.
off optimal. But we're not seeing that spin sitting up above.
I just try and get more comfortable with what feels like aiming right. It's not actually square for me.
Yeah. As you say, if that means not having to manage the club face through the ball.
That was a heel because I allowed my hands to take. I know that.
Yeah, that's the one, a little bit of a stop, a little bit of a catch ball through.
That's the knowing that you're aiming right and you're going to try and bring
It's,
it back left when you don't need
and
to.
it's a trust thing. I think if you can get comfortable with that freewheel and the pattern being where you've been playing a fade, actually what suits your swing direction is that side draw. Little bit open on the face. And that's the one that then just pops the spin up a little bit. So,
I think I'm going to be really honest with you. I think I just opened the face at that address.
yeah.
And I probably just left it there.
Good contact, 155 ball speed.
I didn't change anything from a swing perspective. I didn't change the swing. I just
Sounds just that little bit, sounds a little bit bottomy. Good delivery. I mean, so the face to path 1 degree closed again. I just pull that tee up a little bit. Good club speed. You're starting to see creep up a little bit.
I can just feel my left hand go a bit at the bottom. It's that old swing pattern. You're going to try and square the face.
But I think that's one where again, for the swing lines you're producing, just as the more trust you get with it, the more your body's just going to turn through, which the longer that leaves the face on line, you get that little bit anxious about it, just stall on it a bit, then it flips. It's just getting, it's getting comfortable with just that different visual, different concept of setup.
Yeah.
55.8 ball speed, yeah, 156. So again, that was the one where you could see you go all the way through. Club path 0.8, face to path 0.7, so slight toe strike is geared it a bit right to left.
Yeah.
But that's the most neutral line we've seen. So as long as your body keeps going, there isn't the breakdown.
Just trusting that body.
And then for one that wasn't quite middle, still very good launch and spin. So as you let that face come through with that slightly right side aim, let me switch. I think what you're going to start to see is the variations top to bottom and the flight are going to come down, because that one where you just anti-left it and hold the face on, open it up, kick it right up, that's going to diminish.
That shoulder's aiming left slightly.
No, shoulders are bang on line. Bang on line.
That's what I said.
Low, yeah.
Yeah.
Be interesting to do, just as a kind of before you weigh yourself out. Just the same feel, also with kind of to be as fair to this as possible.
Aiming out to the right.
Yeah.
You type this head like bars into this. Still spinning.
Less so, a little bit less so. I think having hit it, tested it with the rep the other day, last week, it's very stable, like all the heads are now across the face, very stable. Yeah.
Only on YouTube.
I think it's
Interesting where the weight of this now is
yeah.
changed so dramatically. Whereas I felt confident I could swing as hard as I want to do that.
I was going to say, I think with this one, it is a little bit less heavy, and that's the bit that lets you just keep going through, and the club comes with you. This one, a little bit heavier, a little more behind you. Yeah, interesting with that, and the strike's gone off with that.
I've lost the strike with that.
Just a little bit that way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Come out lower.
Yeah.
it's when I clear that left hip now.
Yeah.
It's just really.
And it's almost
it's
just
damaging now.
yeah, it's one of those that reaction to it. You're just having to. So I'm trying to find the.
Work a bit harder.
Yeah, and you're having to get the club through it a little bit more rather than turn, rotate, and
Yeah.
just collect.
It's amazing how you can all of a sudden go off something.
It doesn't take. I mean, when you think that you're at 105 miles an hour, you're going from 0 to 105 miles an hour in half a second. So on a lever that's over a metre long, it's a lot of momentum build up.
Interesting.
I know I can get good strike
Yeah.
if I'm going to pull it.
Can you move that one?
Throwing your right hand
Not again.
Yeah, I'm less confident.
But it shows, actually also shows how quickly we work, kind of adapt to things. So that's the one thing that if you get into a very strong pattern of, I mean, that might be where that fade actions come from. That you're having to fetch it through a little bit more. So
Yeah.
the safe move is to drag it left. Whereas actually we start to get it working with you a little bit better. You're not having to make that compensation. A little hard on the face. Yeah.
I think, as you said, that could be a byproduct of the Titleist.
I think there's a bit of that. It's going to create a little bit of a pull and fetch through. And the more we can take that stuff out of it, is that you already hit up on it, so you're creating launch. The more we can just turn and rotate and take any of that out of it, it's going to minimise any of those flare-ups. Better move through, better balance through. A little low inside.
If I was looking at the 170 shot,
So I think it's a bit of a, to coin a simple, but it's a bit of a 1 + 1 = 3 thing. I think you've developed a way of over the last couple of years of kind of making that work, but it's definitely going to hold you back a little bit on the speed side of things,
Yeah.
because it's not letting you whip through and generate those extra 2 or 3 miles an hour club speed. But it's created a bit of a pattern of what you've then got to do to kind of
Yeah.
drag, fetch, and hold
compensate it,
it off. And where the irons are that much shorter, it's less of an issue. It's a different address position and posture, and so a little bit of a different pattern. With driver, when you're firing at it, we want you to just be able to just turn through and unload. Where your technique's in a good place, path 1 degree and angle of attack up. That's all on a good line. So we don't want you to have to manage the face at all. Just missed the spin on that. A little bit further, that italics are calculations, so it's just feathered a bit. I think there's definitely a bit of an inbuilt take 2 for the load. Hit your load of driver. There's definitely a little bit of an inbuilt turning under of the left wrist. So you're turning a head that's measuring 9 odd degrees into there's about another 8 or 9 degrees add. So you've got 5 or 6 with your angle of attack, and then another 3 or 4 with the hands through. I think the more we can get any of those sort of compensations out, the more relaxed your hands can be, the more you're going to leave loft off. It starts to kind of lag and work over. Club speed there, you see it, that's 106, 107, so that's definitely facilitating a little bit more speed. And when your hands lines allow the club just to follow you around, that's where we get results like that, where it's just it's just as upward on the angle of attack, but there's not been that recovery through. So it's just a quieter delivery, so there's less of that going on through the ball. It's yes, 8 on the angle of attacks on the. It's where your long drivers are from an angle of attack point of view, but we'd probably look at that and go, it's safer to be at the 5 level from a dispersion point of view. But equally speaking, that's kind of where that offset comes into it, because by the time the club gets to the ball, it's already on the way back round. So hence, that's where the path starts to go a little bit out to in, and where you're able to deliver quite so much loft, because you then got to hold the face to keep it on line, and by just turning there, that's allowing everything just to be squared off to the target line of impact, but that's where actually the slide draws your natural shot. So it's a bit of a, it's one of those ones where there's definitely a benefit. The heads are better off centre. When you get the contact on it, get the loft down a little bit more, the spin's in a great place. A bit of just getting, and where you've been able to do a lot of swing work and sim work, you just grooved a very repeating compensation with driver just to pull through and add a bit of loft. And it's just getting out of those. Because when you just point, shoot, free it up, it's a really very, very good setup.
Point and go.
So that's an easy go.
This is, yeah.
Yeah, a little quick in transition.
Just dancing around errors now.
It's a little, I mean, there's every aspect of what we want from it is in there, apart from, because of angle attack, the lower launch angle, but that's just the impact dynamics. That just jumped out a little bit from the start of the downswing. So when you give yourself the time to make the swing and just turn and squish it. So I think there's a bit of thought going into this. So you can see that last one went right. That one was definitely not going right. Great delivery, great club speed. It's just
that happy medium.
there's a bit of that overreaction where your hands are saving something like from there, just 1 degree from in to out, just saved it from a position that didn't need saving.
Yeah.
So a good way someone to think of a good tee shot at Burwood. What about a tee shot you like at Burwood to play? So a little heel side, but the heel side is lower than the middle ones with the Titleist. So it's just got low and inside.
Makes sense to start off.
So there's definitely benefits there.
Yeah.
It's just one where there's a little bit of club, and I would say it's not so much. It's not a massive. It's not really a technical thing. It's more
Comfort.
whether it's a confidence from seeing things not go a certain way. I mean, say the alignment thing just makes sense from where your angle of attack is, but it's as much a getting. You're used to having to play a particular shot type with the driver to make it work to anti-left it. If we can get the setup slightly to the right alignment to square path off, it then allows all your other bits just to follow your body rotation through. So there's a bit of the club, there's a bit of what kind of setup and slight approach. And so
Quite left there.
you're,
The shoulders.
well, when your feet are square, your shoulders are a little open to feet line. So when your stance off, your shoulders are absolutely ramrolled down the line. I think that's where we're seeing the path off a little bit. But that's why it's also so repeating. It's not like you're throwing the club on an odd plane through the shot.
There's more square.
Yeah. Caught the mat down the line. Yeah, caught a little bit of bounce from the mat, but from the setup position, path 0.5.
Yeah.
So it's just then keep going with it. Face stays on line. Distance there. And we're probably getting to critical point on number of driver swings in a row. I mean, it's the kind of thing that if you're back over for a few weeks, what's probably worth doing is just getting potentially a few reps in of that altered address position and getting a feel for that. We can always do a double check once that feels a bit less alien. Because if you can get comfortable with that and start to free it up, what we're seeing a little bit is you're starting to get more freedom through the swing. The strike point's just moving onto the heel a little bit, which is then dropping ball speed and picking up spin a little bit. But it's still a delivery pattern's still in a good place. So it's just going to change those up a little bit by giving yourself the room just to free it up. You're getting full extension rather than pulling in a little bit.
It's just finding a different place, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all just a bit of bedding in with, we can just nip away at a couple of elements. There's a noticeably longer shot in there. Back up over 150 ball speed.
Yeah. See,
That's that face open.
I don't know where that's coming. That's not opening up.
Yeah.
That's stopping.
Yeah.
And then the hands are just taking over. There's no freedom for the hips just to keep going left.
So there's a cumulative path moving forward. It's just that it's in there. We've seen the swings where you've just got everything synced up, and it looks easier through the ball. We're seeing club speed up a couple of miles an hour. We're getting those 105, 106s up to 107 on one of them from a club speed point of view, which then opens up. That puts you from a centre strike up pretty damn close to that 160 you were mentioning earlier on. And I think the more we start to get a bit of trust and freedom, that's going to become the average rather than the higher ones.
Yeah.
But I think because of what you've had to do with the existing setup, it's at the moment the odd one, and that's whether it's a case of having having a couple of practice sessions just to get a feel for that. We can always just have a short revisit and just cross-reference, especially as you're back for a few weeks.
Yeah.
So it may be kind of worth just getting your head around that slightly different setup position, getting a bit of trust and comfort with that, and then just have a revisit and a double check. I think we're 99% of the way there with that. I think what we're seeing in terms of this,
Just that.
the body feels one thing, the back of the head's used to having to do something else than we need it to get it back to alignment. And I think as that settles in, you start to see that's when that dispersion pattern comes in, because you're not having to manipulate the face through the ball, but it just feels like at the moment, because it'll feel like you're set up over there somewhere.
It doesn't feel that extreme, to be honest. I think it's all to do with the impact hands.
Yeah.
And if I slow the body down,
Yeah.
it's like, you've got to slow the body down. You've got to just try and stay in there. That doesn't feel alien.
Yeah.
It's set up there.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
It's just that little cling on with the hands last minute.
If I get to that point, then it's like, if I don't hold on, it's going left.
Yeah, based on where you've been set up,
Yeah.
and that's that bit of, I think, getting a couple of sessions where you start to see that and go, oh no, that isn't going left. Okay, I can just allow it to come round, because that's really 5 open on the face there. That's really the only difference between that one that's 265 high right versus the one that's 285 straight, because that starts to come down to the low mid twos like we know it can. Launch angle's going to come down a little bit, and then for that swing there's potential for 30 yards more.
Yes.
But it's purely that it's
Down to delivery.
well, so do is down to just a last minute save. 5 degrees face to path. That's just spooned it up, and you can say for the spin to have only got to 3-1, that's actually not too bad.
Yeah.
5 open. But I think it's worth a bit of a bed in with that feel and a cross reference just to make absolutely sure.
What was that?
It's in there. So that's
Same standard 9,
the
is it?
LTDX LS, 9 degree in its lower loft position. So because of where your angle of attack is, we need is minimal loft. What that's doing is giving good spin, really good spin when you get that squared through and the contact gets just in. A couple of us getting a little low, little heel. Once it gets up the face, we're getting the 2-2-2-3 on spin. Going back to those couple
We're
of
not
shots. in
talking much
particular.
though, we're talking 5 mil.
Yeah, it really isn't a lot. So you can see like that one, it's not even a hook, and you've got that 2-2 on spin. That one there, very neutral. That was a little low on the face. That one then 2-3. So for the same sort of shot patterns, it's just those are the ones where probably a little bit fresher, and you can say, okay, let's just see what happens, and start to free it up. that then becomes, that's at 104, we're doing 106, 107, so that's another 4 or 5 miles an hour ball speed, that's 10 yards. So, but I think at the moment it's just a bit of a different feel. It's just the body trusting that alignment position isn't going to line straight to the right hand rough. Like kind of a shot you might play on 7 at there, where it's round the hill, aim it a bit right and hit that shot. That's just spot on. But I think as you get used to that different setup position and the voice in the back of the head, that little kind of last minute don't go left, trust it's okay, it's not going to bleed out right, it's not going to hook over. Actually, the more you start to unwind and free it up, the straighter it's going to go. But you're going to see that lower launch angle, lower dynamic loft more regularly because there's not that last minute hang on and open face on.
Well, it was interesting as well, lining slightly right squares the shoulders, so there's obviously there's a hip element, tightness.
Again, depending on, sat at a desk or done various things, you get a bit tight down one side, and it's amazing how much that pelvic mobility or mid backs can start to move that setup position from where you're actually kind of ramrod square on the bottom end. Hands will look square, but can just start to see that there. A little bit of tension one side to other, sat on a long flight, all those sort of bits has quite an effect. So, but just by getting your shoulders squared off by closing the foot line down, that's the bit that allows you to start to deliver down the line. I think a bit of it is because of where angle of attack is. So if you take kind of almost a swing as a hula hoop, you're on the way up quite a long way. If you're kind of this far up, the face has had that much more time to turn over. So again, that's that need to hold the face off a little bit more. So, and that's also what offsetting the stance a little bit does. It allows you to get the club head naturally squaring to the target line. So whilst technically, yes, the feet are closed, your swing line is on line. Whereas if you get someone who's hits it down a lot, well, they have to do the opposite, because otherwise then they've got to really kind of whip the toe and then they get the smaller hook. So it's just sort of, I think, understanding because of your kind of strong angle of attack that side as well. But that also your natural swing, because that natural shot shape should be that slight draw as that toe comes round and through. But the really high ones are where that little bit of ad loft comes in. So there's an average 290 or driver, not even in 40-degree heat. The speeds there, you can see you're able to open it up more. I think there's a bit of a bed in and a cross reference, just to give the kind of the mind a chance to get settled around that other position. But that for me is 99% of the way there. We've not seen anything else that got the spin where it got.
No, the shot above it is probably where it's got the best figures.
That's your optimum one. You've got the club speed. It's still 1 to 2 miles an hour more in there, but you've got the contact, got the launch and spin in a great place. So that's where we start to see the numbers really kick on. And because you've angle attack, you're incredibly efficient on carry. It's me, I launched mine at about 12, 13. So for I'm at 160, 1.2. I don't carry it much further than that because it's coming in flatter, it chases a little bit more. So massively efficient carry distance. It's a great carry efficiency at that angle attack, but it just brings in if you're having to manage the face, it brings in that little bit of flary on.
You can benchmark those figures.
And I can save those down. Take the specs of it, take the exact loft on it. It's low launching driver heads are hard to come by. A lot of the tour guys are going slightly more mid-speed heads as well. So somebody delivers the loft you do, then you're looking for one to get it down the full as much as possible. But at least these are now more forgiving than things like the old SLDR, which would have been an unbelievable head when you caught the middle, but horrific offset.
Very similar to that.
Except a bit lower spin. The concept of that still makes sense. It's just that the head now is a bit punching off centre and a bit spinny. So again, if you add a spinny head to a little bit of an ad loft, a little bit of an open face, then you might as well hit your 3 wood. Which I do. So I think
Yeah.
When you get a 3 with
Right,
260,
you only
why,
get-
why do you need the driver?
Yeah, and that's when then if you're through the 260, which it should be for your speed, that's when that's got to be the next shot. You've got to, we look at about a 10%
Yeah.
gain. So if you're 260, it's got to be 285. But that's where an okay one is once we get that delivery level. So yeah, I think
No,
short
makes sense.
Couple of
Couple of more sessions.
couple of practices getting comfortable with that address position, and then half an hour or so just to cross reference and yeah, to tune it.
Good.
Lovely.
Well worth it.
Last of that after that flight. Yeah. But it's like, lots of the dynamics are good. It's yeah. Yeah, we just saw as you got more used to it, the strike point just went inside as you started to extend a little bit more. So just as the setup changes, your distance from the ball and tee height, ball position will just shift various fraction. But there's some good stuff. There's some great results in it. It's just edited. Lovely. It's always.
Yeah.
I'll take all the specs down of that.
Especially at my age.
It's worth a few more yards.